Okay, good evening everyone here and everyone from afar. Venerable Children will be joining us in about 10 or 15 minutes. We'll start with our usual prayers and visualizations that we do at the beginning of each of these practices and teachings. So if you want, you can turn to page 28 in that blue book. Visualize the Buddha in the space in front of you, made of radiant, transparent light, golden, alive, living being with a light body. On his right is Maitreya, and on his left is Manjushri, and he's surrounded by all the holy beings, various Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Arhats, Dharma protectors, Dakas and Dakinis. And then you imagine yourself surrounded by all sentient beings. And as we recite these various prayers, I'll lead us through the various visualizations very briefly. Namo Guru Vya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Guru Vya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Guru Vya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by engaging in generosity and the other far-reaching practices, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dhamma and the other far-reaching practices, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by engaging in generosity and the other far-reaching practices, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. So feel that you've come under the protection of the three jewels. So although we have said these words of wanting to become a Buddha in order to help all sentient beings, and we have that aspiration, we haven't really gotten ourselves all the way there to be able to do that. So now we want to contemplate the four immeasurables, and we'll spend some time with this to help to really bring our minds around to this vast motivation of bodhicitta. So we'll pause in between each of the four verses to take some time to contemplate. Make your mind into that sentiment. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. And then the next line. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and its causes. So take some time to let go of anything that's keeping you from having that motivation. And then next, may all sentient beings not be separated from sorrowless bliss. And then the next line. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. Now let's do the 7-limb prayer. We'll go straight through and do the visualizations as we go through each line, contemplating each line as we say it. Reverently I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind, and present clouds of every type of offering, actual and mentally transformed. I confess all my destructive actions accumulated since beginning this time, and rejoice in the virtues of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until cyclic existence ends, and turn the wheel of Dharma for sentient beings. I dedicate all the virtues of myself and others to the Great Awakening. Then we'll offer the mandala, wishing to offer everything in the universe in order to receive teachings and to generate realizations within our mind stream. So you can turn to page 14. We'll do the short mandala offering and the mandala offering to request teachings on that page. This this ground anointed with perfume, flower strewn Mount Meru, for land, sun, and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered to you. May all beings enjoy this pure land. Venerable holy gurus, in the space of your truth body, from billowing clouds of your wisdom and love, let fall the rain of the profound and extensive Dharma, in whatever form is suitable for subduing sentient beings. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. And you can turn back to page 29. Or make requests. So you imagine that from the Buddha in front of you, a replica of your teacher in the aspect of the Buddha comes to the crown of your head, facing the same direction as you. And as we make this request, imagine the Buddha on the crown of your head acting as an advocate for you. Glorious and precious Root Guru, sit upon the lotus and moon seat on my crown, guiding me with your great kindness. Bestow upon me the attainments of your body, speech, and mind, the eyes through whom the vast scriptures are seen, supreme doors for the fortunate who would cross over to spiritual freedom, illuminators whose wise means vibrate with compassion. To the entire line of spiritual mentors I make request. Now the Buddha in the space in front of you merges with the Buddha on the crown of your head. And as we recite the Buddha's mantra, imagine this beautiful light and nectar flowing into you, completely filling your body. And you can imagine this on the heads of all sentient beings surrounding you as well. So we'll start with the visualization.
Taya Tao Muni Muni Maha Muni Soha. Taya Tao Muni Muni Maha Muni Soha. Taya Tao Muni Muni Maha Muni Soha. So while focusing on the Buddha, on the crown of your head, then let's make the following aspirations and think: the fact that I and all other sentient beings have been born in samsara and are endlessly subjected to various kinds of intense dukkha or unsatisfactory conditions is due to our failure to cultivate the 3 higher trainings correctly once we have developed the aspiration to liberation. Guru Buddha, please inspire me and all sentient beings so that we may cultivate the 3 higher trainings correctly once we have developed the aspiration to liberation. And then continue thinking. Mind on its own is by nature ethically neutral. In relation to the thoughts I and mine, first arises the thought that they are inherently established. Then, on the basis of this mode of apprehension of the I, arise various kinds of wrong thinking, such as attachment to what is on my side, anger towards what is on the other side, arrogance that deems me superior to others, and then on their basis arise doubt and wrong views that deny the existence of the guide, the Buddha, who taught selflessness and of his teaching, karma and its effects, the Four Noble Truths, the Three Jewels, and the like. And then based on these, other afflictions develop. We accumulate karma under their influence, and by this we are obliged to experience a wide variety of dukkha in cyclic existence. Therefore, ultimately, the root of all dukkha is ignorance. May I, by all means, attain Guru Buddhahood that frees me from the root of all of samsara's suffering. For that purpose, may I correctly train in the qualities that are the three precious higher trainings. In particular, may I correctly guard the ethical disciplines to which I have committed myself, even at the cost of my life, since guarding them is beneficial and failing to do so is extremely harmful. And in response to your request to the Guru Buddha to inspire your mind to gain these realizations, 5-colored light and nectar stream from all the parts of his body into you through the crown of your head. The light and nectar absorb into your body and mind, and then think that there's the light from the Buddha in front of you radiates also to all the sentient beings around you, and this light and nectar flows into their body and mind. And as the light and nectar enter us, it purifies all negativities and obscurations accumulated since beginningless time. And especially it purifies illnesses, interferences, negativities, and obscurations that interfere with cultivating the three higher trainings correctly once we have developed the aspiration to liberation. So think that all of that is purified and feel what it's like to be free of those obscurations. Your body becomes translucent, the nature of light. And all your good qualities, lifespan, merit, and so forth, expand and increase. Having developed the aspiration to liberation, think that a superior realization of the correct cultivation of the three higher trainings has arisen in your mind stream and in the mind streams of others. So, last week we were discussing the practice of the middle level of beings, people who aspire for liberation from cyclic existence. Yeah, they already want a good rebirth in samsara, but they know that that's not sufficient. Yeah, and so they're wanting to get off the merry-go-round of cyclic existence. And so to do that, first we have to cultivate the renunciation, or the determination to be free. And that's done by contemplating the four facts, or the four truths seen by the noble ones, or the Arya beings. So last week and the week before, we talked about the first of the four truths, the one explaining dukkha, or unsatisfactory conditions. So we talked about all the difficulties of being born in any of the realms in cyclic existence, because all of them come about due to ignorance. And so there's nothing healthy or good that's going to come out of ignorance. And then the second truth goes into what is the cause, or the origin of this kind of situation. Okay? And so first the Buddha has us meditate on what is our situation and what is its causes, what are its causes, so that we can see that clearly and then aspire to get out of the situation. You know, that's really important before we go on to thinking about nirvana and the path to nirvana, or let alone full awakening. Okay? So this week we're going to go into the second truth, you know, the origins, or the causes. And so that involves talking specifically about the afflictions, yeah, primarily, you know, ignorance as the origin, and then the other afflictions that come out of ignorance, and then the fact that all these other, through acting with these other afflictions, then we create karma, and then that karma is polluted by ignorance, and so it is what, you know, immediately causes the rebirth. Because at the time when we die, when the body and mind of one life are separating, then, you know, due to craving and clinging, then some karma ripens, and depending on what karma ripens, then our mind is propelled into a specific rebirth. Yeah, and then once we're born in that rebirth, then we're back with aging, sickness, and death, and all the specific miseries of that particular realm of rebirth. Okay? So there's a causal link here. Yeah? Starts with ignorance, goes to afflictions, goes to polluted karma, goes to rebirth, and all of the attendant dukkha that arises. Okay? So when we have experiences we don't like, and we go, why is this happening to me? Then it happened because of my polluted karma, which arose due to my afflictions, which are based on my ignorance of the nature of things. So why am I having this problem? It's not due to anybody else. It's due to the pollution in my own mind. So therefore I have to purify my mind. And that's also why we're going to be doing Nune tomorrow. Okay, so this particular topic fits in very well with being a motivation for the Nune practice tomorrow. Okay, so so let's go on and look at some of those different things, okay? So when we talk about affliction, yeah, sometimes it's It's translated delusion, or I used to call it disturbing emotions and disturbing attitudes. I think I finally come to the conclusion that I think affliction is better because we are afflicted by these mental attitudes, okay? So an affliction is defined as a phenomena that when it arises is disturbing in character, and that through arising disturbs the mind stream. Okay? So it's something that when it comes up, by nature it is disturbing, and it disturbs our mind stream to the extent that we then act out of it. And then through our actions we create karma, and we also disturb the lives of other living beings. Okay, so disturbance is the primary function of afflictions. Nothing good is going to come out of them. Okay, so there's different lists of afflictions and different ways of categorizing them. And one way of categorizing them is into the 6 root afflictions. Okay, so they're root because they're the fundamental ones, and based on them all the other auxiliary ones come out. Okay, so these 6: first, attachment, we know that one. Anger, we know that one even better. Conceit, got that one down pretty well. Ignorance, we have all the time and we're not even aware of it. Doubt, yep. And afflictive views. And then within afflictive views, there's 5 types. Okay, which we'll go into. So, those are called the 4 root afflictions. 6. Okay, just checking if you're if you're awake. Okay, so let's start and look at each one. So the first one is attachment. Okay, so attachment exaggerates the attractiveness of a contaminated or a polluted object. Okay, so a polluted object is an object created, in the samsaric environment due to the ignorance of all the beings who live there. Okay, so it's not a pure object, let's say like the Buddha or the realization of emptiness or something like that. It's something that exists due to the minds of sentient beings. Either a natural thing or environment, or something that we have created. Okay, so it's a new way of thinking that, your computer is polluted and your iPhone is polluted, and you don't like that. No, my computer and iPhone are the basis of happiness. No, not actually. Okay, so attachment exaggerates the good qualities of this kind of object. Yeah, and having exaggerated those good qualities, then it wants to hold on to the object or the person. When I say object, it doesn't necessarily mean an inanimate thing. It could also mean a person. Yeah, but we want to hold on, and we see this thing or person as happiness, as having happiness in it, and by our associating with it, then we'll have happiness. The happiness will go from the object into us. It's like when you eat chocolate, right? The happiness is in the chocolate. Yeah. And when you eat it, the happiness comes into you. That's the way we see it, isn't it? Yeah. Or you're with a person you like, the happiness is inside that person. And when I'm with them, then it kind of, radiates out to me, and I get happy. Yeah. But, of course, things don't always operate that way. Yeah. So, there's different degrees and variations of attachment. People will have attachment to different objects and clearly to different people. But the way attachment operates is always the same. It's based on exaggerating the good qualities or projecting good qualities that aren't even there. Sometimes we do that too. You know, there's absolutely no good qualities about the object or the person, but we project all these good qualities onto it. Okay? And then cling and hold on. Okay? And so this kind of attachment is the source of our dissatisfaction. Yeah? Because with attachment, we want what we don't have, and we hold on to what we do have. And so it brings dissatisfaction because we can never get all we want or whatever we want. Can you think of examples in your life where you want something and you can't get it and we're dissatisfied? Yeah, the source of the dissatisfaction is not the external condition that we can't get what we want. The source of the dissatisfaction is the attachment that is clinging onto the object. Because when there's no clinging, then there's no sense of dissatisfaction. Yeah, it's only when the mind is clinging that we're dissatisfied because we want more or we want better. Attachment not only is the source of dissatisfaction, but it also gives rise to fear. Because once we have something, then we don't want to lose it. And of course, because we can't hold on to things forever, fear arises that we're going to lose what we have that we really like. Yeah? Or if we haven't gotten it yet, fear comes that I won't ever get it. Okay? So it's quite interesting how the fear, you know, is related to attachment. Isn't it? Yeah? I got this. This is so wonderful. But maybe it's going to get taken away from me. Maybe this person doesn't really love me. Maybe they're going to leave me. Maybe this thing's going to break. You know, maybe somebody else will get something even better than what I have. Okay, so there's fear and anxiety that often arise due to the attachment. And then the dissatisfaction of not getting everything we want. Yeah? Which everybody suffers from. Yeah? So right off the bat, when, you know, I think it's very helpful to see these aspects of fear and dissatisfaction, because we can identify those two mental states as unpleasant. Yeah, and then say, oh, attachment must be behind it. But when attachment only is in our mind, sometimes we don't identify it as an afflictive state of mind because we feel good. I got what I want. I'm happy. I got the promotion. I got the money. The person I really care about is with me. I'm lying on the beach in Hawaii in the middle of winter, you know. Oh, this is definitely happiness. Yeah, okay. And so when we have that happiness, there's often attachment to it. And therefore, we don't see the attachment as something that's afflictive because often the feeling of happiness accompanies it. But the thing is, if we stay with that object long enough, the feeling of happiness goes and the feeling of discomfort comes. You're lying on that beach in the dead of winter, and you're lying on that beach, and you're lying on the beach, and you're lying on the beach, and eventually you want to get out of that beach, don't you? It's like, I'm fried on this beach. I'm tired of lying down. I want something else. Yeah. So that's called the dukkha of change, that what we call happiness is actually a state of discomfort that's still small. Okay. So it's really, it takes some study of our mind to be able to identify attachment and then to be able to say, this is something that I want to eliminate. Yeah, because as long as we're getting what we want and we feel happy, our renunciation of cyclic existence is out the window. Yeah, why renounce samsara? It feels so good. And attachment makes us feel good, so how can it be an affliction? And then, when we hear, oh, it's an affliction, then we misunderstand. And we think, oh, Buddhism is saying you shouldn't be happy. Now, have I said that? In this whole discussion of the disadvantages of attachment, did I say that means that it's bad to be happy? No. But that's where our mind goes. Okay, oh, attachment is bad, so happiness must be bad. And Buddha doesn't want us to be happy. We have to renounce, and we're renouncing happiness. And so somehow I've got to suffer, and through suffering I will gain redemption. Sorry, folks. That is your Christian background. That is not what the Buddha is saying. Okay. It's quite interesting, isn't it? You know, due to a lot of culture, you know, we have that in our culture, don't we? Yeah, you've somehow got to suffer to atone, and the body is evil and happiness is evil, and so you've got to beat your body and deny yourself. And no, that's not what the Buddha said. Yeah, the Buddha said, look at your own mind. And when you do, you see that in the long term, attachment and all of its varieties, craving, clinging, greed, possessiveness, you know, you see that all of these things don't bring you happiness, and they bring you suffering. And because we want to be happy, we want to be free of these things that in the long term bring us suffering. Because we want happiness, and it's fine to have happiness. Yeah, where our problem arises is when we cling on to the happiness. We can't just let the happiness be. It arises, it ceases. It arises and we go, you know, and we hang on for dear life. Like, this can't go away. Yeah, and that mind state is suffering, isn't it? Yeah, that mind state that is greedy, that never feels satisfied. Whatever we have, we want more, we want better. Yeah. So we take advantage of other people, we're self-centered, we take the best for ourselves, leave the non-best for somebody else. You know, this whole mind of attachment really creates a lot of problems. Okay? So the Buddha is not saying don't be happy. He's saying be happy. Just don't cling to the happiness, because the clinging will make you unhappy. Yeah? And you can really see that in your life when you consciously practice not clinging or not being greedy. When you really consciously practice it, yeah, then you can watch the happiness come. You're satisfied with what's there, you know it's going to go away, and when it goes away, you're okay about it. Yeah? Whereas when we have attachment, the happiness comes, we hang on, I can't ever be separated from this, never, 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 ever. And of course, as soon as things come together, they're gonna separate sometime, or they're gonna decline in happiness. So when they do, then we go, oh, woe is me, I'm so miserable, I've lost my happiness. How am I going to survive? Nobody else has ever been suffering like this. Don't we? Okay, so this is part of the problem with attachment. Okay, so that's the first one of the 6. Okay, now when we can't get what we're attached to, or when what we're attached to goes away, then how do we respond? Anger. Okay, so another byproduct of attachment is anger, and anger is the second of the root afflictions. So in the way that, similar to attachment exaggerated or projected good qualities on someone or something and then clung. Anger exaggerates or projects bad qualities on someone or something and then pushes away from it or wants to destroy it. Okay, so it's a similar mechanism but in the opposite direction. Okay, and our mind is very good at creating many reasons to justify our anger. Yeah, we're quite good at that. Yeah, any reasonable person would be angry at this person. Look what they did. They did this and this and this and this. I have every right to be angry. And my anger, this says it's an exaggeration of negative qualities. No way. That's not true. I'm seeing reality. The same way as when I'm attached to something. I'm not exaggerating good qualities. I'm seeing that person or that object as they really are. They are the best thing since sliced bread. You know? And then a few years later, they are the worst thing since, since they invented sewers. You know? And, our mind just perpetually refuses to accept that we are exaggerating. Yeah? And instead, especially with anger, I am not exaggerating. I am seeing reality. And the situation is very simple. That person is wrong, and I am right. And the way to remedy it is they need to change. It's very simple. Isn't it? Isn't that how we think when we're angry? I'm right, you're wrong. The solution is you change. Because you're wrong, and I'm right. So I'm not going to change. I'm not going to give in. Yeah. So you see, individuals do this, groups do it, nations do it, and we're in a big mess because of it. So there's 9 reasons in particular that we often use to justify our anger. Okay, so you can maybe make some examples for these in your life. When we're doing nune and when you can't talk, you need something to think about. Yeah. This is a real good thing. Think about this teaching, okay? So the 9 things. What we think about. This person harmed me in the past. Therefore, I'm furious at them. Okay? Can you think of somebody right this instant? Only one, not 10. I bet you we can think of 10 like this that fulfills this description. They harmed me in the past. That's one. Second, they're harming me right now. Third, they're going to harm me in the future. Of course, I don't know that, but I'm certain they are. Okay. It's called paranoia, suspicion. Okay. Then, the second set of 3. They harm my dear friend or relative. You know, in the past, they harmed them. Oh, the person who I cherish so much, somebody harmed them. Ah, that's awful. Or they're harming my dear friend or relative right now, or they're going to harm them in the future. Okay, have you had all those thoughts? Bet you can think of a lot of examples of this. Then the last set of 3 are, they help my enemy. Oh, people I don't like, people who threaten me, people who interfere with me getting what I want. They helped that idiot. Oh, horrible. They deserve my anger. So they help my enemy. They are helping my enemy, and they will help them in the future. Okay? So those are 9 justifications for our anger. Yeah? True? Not true? True. Isn't it? Okay, so it can be very helpful for us to sit down and write out examples of all these things, yeah, so that we can begin to learn how to identify our afflictions. Yeah. Okay, the next one is conceit. Okay, some people translate this one as pride, or sometimes arrogance, but for me, conceit has a particular flavor. You know, because proud, like a parent often says, I'm proud of you to their child, you know? So pride, you know, can have that kind of good side where when they say, I'm proud of you, it means I rejoice in your good qualities. Yeah, but conceit, you never heard that word said in a virtuous sense, do you? Yeah. Does conceit have a special flavor to you? You know, okay, proud, yeah, that's not so good. Arrogant, that's worse than being proud. Conceit, ugh. Ugh. That person's beyond if they're conceited. Yeah. In 6th grade, somebody said I was conceited. Ooh. Yeah, you see, this is what? 58 years, no. How old was I in 6th grade? Anyway,
11.
How many years later, you know, and somebody said I was conceited.
52 years ago.
How dare they say I'm conceited? Just because I'm better than they are. Yeah. Okay, so, you know, we often have a hard time seeing our conceit too. Okay. So there's different kinds of conceit. Here, there's 7 kinds. Yeah. Yeah, the lists are very good. Yeah. So the conceit, thinking I am superior in relation to somebody who's inferior. Okay, so here and in the next 2 kinds of conceit also, there's these first 3. We're comparing ourselves to others based on maybe our wealth, or the kinds of possessions we have. I have a nicer car than they do. Looks, I'm more attractive. Yeah? What are you smirking at? You have the same hairdo. But mine looks better than yours. Okay, knowledge. We get conceited over our knowledge. Okay, social standing. Oh, I have a higher social standing. I'm from a better family, a better socioeconomic group. you know. We get conceited over our athletic ability, over our fame, over our musical abilities, or our artistic abilities. We even get conceited if the cat lets us pet her more than she lets other people pet her.
Hey, wait a minute.
That is a cause for superior social standing. Yeah?
Just good luck.
Okay. So we're always involved with comparing ourselves to others. And this comparison with others is, I think, one of the worst things we do. Because when we compare ourselves with others, either we come out conceited because we think we're better, or we come out jealous because we think we're worse, or we come out competing because we think we're equal. But none of this comparison, when people have an afflictive mind, brings about cooperation. Yeah, and really it's cooperation that is going to make us happy. Yeah, it's not survival of the fittest, it's survival of the most cooperative. Okay, so interesting, spend a little time. What areas of my life do I compare myself with? And I compare myself to somebody who's inferior. They don't know as much as I do, or they aren't as good looking or as talented or whatever it is as I am. Okay, so that's the conceit thinking I am superior. Okay. Second one is the conceit thinking I am superior in relation to somebody who's our equal. So the first one, we were in fact better than the other person, but we're conceited about it. This one, we're equal to the person, but we still think we're better. Okay. The third one is conceit thinking I am superior in relationship to somebody who's better than us. That happens too, doesn't it? We so much want to be good or the best that we will put down somebody who's better than us so that we can come out looking good in our own eyes. Yeah. Okay. Fourth type of conceit is conceit with regards to the aggregates, or with regards to the self. And this is the conceit of I am. I love that terminology, the conceit I am. Because just the thought I am, when we are grasping onto inherent existence, reifying this I, making it something that it isn't, it's a form of conceit, isn't it? It's building it up to be something it isn't. Just the conceit saying, I am, I exist in this universe, I am a presence, you have to deal with me. It's the conceit of I am, okay? So, based on self-grasping, we flaunt ourselves as important simply because we exist. It's the conceit I am. Yeah? I am. You cannot ignore me. And I am going to yell and kick and scream and shout and cry until you pay attention to me. Or if you still don't, then I'm going to, go shoot somebody or beat somebody up. Or I'm going to go in my room and cry. Or I'm going to do something until you recognize that I am, and that I am a force that you have to deal with. Yeah. But the best is if you think I'm wonderful. Then I don't have to do the tantrums to prove that I exist. Okay. Oh, I didn't do all of the forms. So those are only 4 forms of conceit. The 5th one is conceit that thinks we have good qualities that we don't have. Okay? So we're kind of average about something, but we think we're really good. Yeah. Or we might have something a little bit better than what somebody else has, but it's really not spectacular. But again, we inflate it and think, you know, that I have good qualities that other people don't have. Yeah. I know how to wash the dishes in the Abbey so that the inspector will pass us, and you flunk when it comes to washing dishes. Yeah? Right?
Failure.
Yeah, I'm a failure. I dare not wash a dish in the kitchen because I'll do it wrong. And other people are better than me. And they let me know it too. They say, get out of here. Go give a Dharma teaching or something. Get out of here. You don't know how to wash the dishes worth beans. Okay. Okay. So, conceit thinking that we have good qualities that we don't have. The 6th one, this is a very interesting one, okay, is a conceit thinking that we're just a little bit inferior to somebody who's really wonderful. Okay, so in this group of esteemed persons, I am the least qualified. Yeah? You know that one? Yeah. Of all the people who got to sit on the stage at His Holiness's teachings in New York, I'm the one who least deserved it. But you noticed I sat on the stage, didn't you? Yeah? Okay. So this is the conceit that implies that although we are less than those who are world-renowned experts, we're definitely better than the majority of nincompoops. Okay? You know, I'm not nearly as good as, you know, a swimmer as Michael Phelps. You know, implying, but I'm getting there. Yeah, okay. And then the 7th is the conceit thinking our faults are virtues. This is a really horrible kind of conceit. For example, somebody who is ethically degenerate thinks that they're upstanding and righteous. Yeah, this sounds like some, you know, this is Wall Street. Isn't it? Yeah? This is politicians. People, you know, I mean, none of those people think, oh, I'm morally degenerate. They all think, I'm morally, you know, what's the word, you know? Outstanding. Upstanding. That's why the people voted for me. That's why I got as high as I did, because I'm morally outstanding, you know? And they can't see their faults or see their non-virtues. So that kind of conceit is really bad, because then there's, you know, we're going to continue to create a lot of non-virtue, and we'll never even be able to recognize it. So we can't purify it, and we can never be free of it if we can't purify it. You know? So it's the conceit that says, I closed the business deal with that guy, you know, and he didn't even know that I charged an extra 1%. Yeah. Or, you know, whatever we do sometimes when we're making deals with people, or, you know, it's like, I talk them into buying this thing that they don't really need, but I made them think that they needed it. Now I get a big commission. I'm fantastic. What a great salesperson I am. Actually, morally, that's not very good, is it? To talk somebody into buying something they don't need that then they're going to sweat to have to pay off. But you pat yourself on the back. Look what a good salesman I am. Yeah? Okay. So that's another kind of conceit. Thinking our faults are virtues. Another, you know what it's like also? Some people take real pride in being rebellious. It's like, I gotta be rebellious for the sake of being rebellious. And then I can say, look at me, I don't go along with the crowd. And the way we're rebellious sometimes is in quite obnoxious ways that are really not very pleasant to other people. But we take great pride in, being rebellious in that way. Or in pulling. It's also like the pride we took when we were teenagers, when we could talk our parents into giving us what we wanted, or the pride we took when we, were able to make our parents think we were in the house when actually we had snuck out, or whatever it is, we've done something that's not very good, and we take immense pride in it. Okay, so that's a form of conceit. The sixth kind of conceit, okay, here it's listed as thinking we're just a little bit inferior to somebody who's really wonderful. In other lists of the 7 kinds of conceit, this is the conceit that thinks I'm the worst of everybody. Okay, so this is the conceit of if I'm not going to be the best, I'm the worst. Yeah, I can screw this up, I screwed that up, I can make a mess of anything, I do everything wrong. So this is the conceit of guilt and self-loathing. I bet we never thought of self-loathing as a form of conceit. But it is, isn't it? Because it puts undue emphasis on the self. I am so powerful, I can make it all go wrong. Yeah, that's how powerful I am. Of course, then I hate myself because I made it all go wrong. And I only have myself to blame, but I always do that. Yeah, so it's this reverse kind of conceit, okay? So conceit, one of the disadvantages, I suppose you can see many already, but one of them is when we're conceited, we become invincible to learning anything. Because when you already know everything, then you can't learn anything from anybody. Yeah? So every time somebody offers us some suggestions, we say, I know, before the person's even said it. Yeah? So, yeah, we make it very hard to learn anything because we're always, I'm very good already. Don't tell me how to do anything. Okay, should we go on to the next one? What's your favorite so far? Attachment, anger, or conceit?
All of the above.
Okay, then the fourth one is ignorance. So there's many different types of ignorance, and the term can refer to slightly different things, or sometimes very different things, in different contexts. Okay? In general, we say there's 2 kinds of ignorance. The ignorance of the ultimate truth, in other words, the ignorance of the ultimate mode of existence of phenomena. And then the second is ignorance of the conventional truth, which is principally ignorance of karma and its effects. Okay. Okay, so the ignorance of the ultimate truths is what grasps at people and things as existing inherently from their own side. Yeah, so it misapprehends them. The ignorance of karma and its effects, is just our total confusion in what to practice and what to abandon, what is virtuous and what is non-virtuous. Yeah, what should I do and what should I stop doing if I want to be happy? Okay? Now, sometimes when we talk about the ignorance of the ultimate truth, even within, each religion is going to have a different definition of ignorance, what it says that we are ignorant of. But even within Buddhism, there's two views about this ignorance of the ultimate nature. One is that ignorance is just like a smoke screen. You can't see the ultimate truth clearly. So it's a non-knowing. It's obscuration. It's a not knowing of something. But there's other schools that say it's not just a not knowing, it's an active misapprehension of how things exist. Okay, so this is a big difference. One is just, I don't know the nature of reality, and the other is, I grasp at things existing in the exact opposite to the way they actually exist. So it's an active misapprehension. Okay? So, for example, the Sautantrikas, they say, and even a Sangha, in the Chitta Madre, he'll say ignorance is just this obscuration of not knowing. But according to the Prasangikas, ignorance is actively grasping ourselves and all phenomena to exist in a way that we don't. Okay, so you can see even within Buddhism, in the different philosophical schools, there's going to be different definitions of ignorance. Okay, so especially regarding the self, some philosophical schools, within Buddhism, say, we think that there's a permanent, partless, independent person, and that's the wrong idea that we have. Okay, we're just plain old obscured. We don't see that there's no permanent, partless, independent person or soul or self with a capital S. So this is a very gross kind of grasping, thinking that there's a permanent soul, because this is something that is taught to us. It's not an innate kind of grasping. We learn it. Yeah? When we're kids, don't we? We learn it. You have a soul. What's a soul? And then they tell you. Okay. So that's one level. Then beyond that, it's the ignorance thinking that there is a self-sufficient, substantially existent person. So this is like the ignorance that thinks of the self, the I, as a controller. I'm in control of my body and mind. I make decisions around here. And we have that feeling, don't we? Yeah? But when we search for the controller of the body and mind, we can't really find anything. Okay? So there's ignorance in that we think that there's some kind of self that is in charge. And then last, is the ignorance thinking of the self or the person as something totally independent of everything else. Yeah, so it doesn't depend on parts, doesn't depend on causes and conditions. It doesn't depend even on being conceived and given a name. Okay, so it truly or inherently existent self. So there's different levels of ignorance, even regarding the self, the person. what we're obscured from seeing or what we are actively grasping at. Okay? Then there's also, there's the ignorance that is a mental factor. So that's the obscuration or unknowing about the four truths of the Aryas, okay? Or ignorance of the three jewels, ignorance of the law of cause and effect. That's the ignorance that's a mental factor. There's ignorance that is one of the three poisons. We say the three poisonous attitudes: ignorance, anger, and attachment. There, ignorance means specifically ignorance regarding the law of karma and its effects. So sometimes instead of ignorance, we call that confusion. Although at other times, that term, confusion, also refers to self-grasping. Okay. Then there's the ignorance. That's the first link of dependent, origination, the 12 links. So that's the ignorance that grasps at a truly existent self, that gives, from the Prasangika viewpoint, that gives rise to afflictions and then leads to karma. Okay? So that's ignorance. That one's the source of the whole thing, because it's a fundamental obscuration and misunderstanding. And then fifth is deluded doubt. So there's three kinds of doubt, and this is one of them. Okay? There's one kind of doubt that's inclined towards the correct conclusion, one that is in the middle, and one that is deluded, inclined towards the incorrect conclusion. Okay? So it's like, so an example of doubt inclined towards the right conclusion is, I'm not sure about rebirth, but it kind of makes sense. And then in the middle is, I'm not sure about rebirth. I could go either way on it. And then the deluded doubt is, I really don't think there's rebirth. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that whole thing's a bunch of baloney. Okay? If you really feed your deluded doubt, then it's going to go all the way to wrong view. And like, oh, rebirth is just a bunch of garbage and somebody made it up in order to scare people. And we get really cynical about the whole thing. Okay, so deluded doubt. And here it isn't the doubt like, should I vote for this party or that party? Yeah. Or the doubt of, what kind of pesticide, what's the cause of all the bees dying? It could be this, it could be that. And this is a kind of doubt that is in relationship to important things in terms of your spiritual practice. Okay. Then the sixth one is afflictive views. And there are 5 kinds of afflictive views. Maybe before I go on to that, let's see if you have any questions or comments so far. Otherwise you'll get snowed under. Yeah.
So, I know you're not talking about antidotes, but I just kind of wonder on the one about the conceit of I am.
Uh-huh.
It seems like outside of maybe having some kind of realization of emptiness, there's not much you can do about that.
Yeah, the conceit I am, the real antidote to that is the realization of emptiness. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But even before that, if you can negate a permanent, partless, independent self, that's helping getting rid of the conceit. Mm-hmm. Or if you negate a self-sufficient, substantially existent self, that's going to help you too.
Mm-hmm. It's just interesting that ignorance is 4 in this list. If I was making a list, it would be like ignorance and then these things.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it makes you think like, why are they in this order? Yeah. And it's a good thing to think about. Why? Because in some ways, you put ignorance first because it's the root of the whole thing. And I'm thinking maybe attachment comes first because that one we're really familiar with, and it makes us feel good, and it leads us to being greedy, and
Obvious.
yeah, in some way it's obvious. Yeah, are you on this same topic? Yeah?
Yeah, I think that sometimes we can be attached to the other afflictions, though. We can be attached to our ignorant views. We can be attached to our anger.
Yeah, that's true.
Coming first might have a sense too.
Yeah. With attachment, we can be attached to our other negative emotions, can't we? Yeah. And then anger follows naturally after attachment, because when you don't get what you want, you get angry. Then with conceit, we seem to be swinging back towards building up the self again.
And then doubt, maybe.
Yeah. And then ignorance, kind of sandwich ignorance in there. And then doubt. Then you're really going towards wrong, thinking. Ignorance is you're obscured and there's wrong grasping. Doubt is you're really beginning to form a view about that's erroneous. And then afflictive views is you're really stuck in the middle of a bunch of wrong views. Yeah. But of course, the afflictive views can also be said to be a form of ignorance too. So it's not like these things are totally separated from one another. Yeah.
Four questions.
Okay.
We'll start with the attachment ones. Regarding attachment, why does the inherent wisdom of the mind allow emotions to become so strong and lead us in the opposite direction of wisdom?
So why does the inherent wisdom of the mind allow these negative emotions to become so strong and lead us in a way that's opposite to wisdom? Because our inherent wisdom is sleeping. Because our inherent wisdom is teeny, teeny, teeny. And it's sleeping, and it needs to grow, and it needs some exercise. Needs to be developed. Yeah.
When trying to prevent attachment to others, how do we find balance that allows connection without completely detaching?
Okay, this is a good question. So in trying to abandon attachment to others, how do we connect with them in a balanced way so that we don't get attached on one hand, and so that we don't become like an ice cube that I'm so undetached, on the other hand, we don't want to go to either of those things. If you're so wonderful, I can't let you go, and yeah, whatever. You can't imagine being a Buddha and having your mind think either one of those two ways, can you? That's just not going to cut it. Okay, so I think especially what I find very helpful is the more we are capable of generating love and compassion and using those as ways to connect with others, then the less we need to rely on attachment as a way of connecting to others. Because right now, we only know attachment, don't we? It's like, oh, that person makes me happy. Yeah? Whereas when we really take some time and try and develop love, and here I'm meaning the kind of love in Buddhist practice that is impartial and can be extended towards all living beings simply because they exist. So it's a love that just wants somebody to be happy because they exist, not because they do something wonderful for us. And similarly, compassion, wanting them to be free of misery, again, simply because they exist, not because there's somebody special to us. So I think the more that we can cultivate love and compassion, then attachment just becomes superfluous and unnecessary and a big pain in the neck. Yeah? So I think that's one thing that's very helpful. Another thing is that when I see that I'm getting attached to some ordinary person, then I remember I am an ordinary being, obscured by ignorance, anger, and attachment. This other person is an ordinary being, again, plagued by ignorance, anger, and attachment. How are we going to bring each other happiness? Yeah? Or how is this person going to bring me happiness? If I'm, my mind's overcome by afflictions, how are they going to make me happy? With my, afflicted mind. And their minds are, their mind is overwhelmed by affliction. How am I ever going to make them happy? Okay? So I find that very good for lessening the attachment. Yeah.
It seems hard to recognize attachment when there is easy access, proximity, and the wherewithal to obtain things.
When there is what? CDX?
Where there's easy access, proximity, and the wherewithal to obtain
Oh, okay.
things.
Okay.
So does one need to separate from things to see attachment?
Yeah. Okay. So it's hard to cultivate attachment because we're surrounded by objects of attachment.
To recognize.
Yeah.
Recognize attachment, not cultivate attachment.
Oh, well. Okay, good. I'm glad you're aware. Yeah, so it's difficult to recognize attachment and cultivate balance and non-attachment when we're surrounded by objects of attachment. So do we have to stay away sometimes from objects of attachment? Yes. When our attachment is too strong and we just go crazy with something, then we have to stay away from it because our mind is just, it goes bonkers. If you weigh 300 pounds, are you going to be able to go to the ice cream parlor and have a chat with your friend and not buy ice cream? That's hard. So be kind to yourself. Don't go near the ice cream parlor, So in the same way, when there's other things that we're very, very attached to, then we keep a respectful distance from them so that we can then cultivate our wisdom mind that can see the disadvantages of getting attached to those things and can see how those things aren't worthy objects of attachment. Yeah. So this is part of the idea behind monastic precepts is, it helps us separate from objects of attachment. Okay.
What should we do to what should we practice to lessen attachment to sensual pleasures, both mental and that coming from having possessions?
Okay, so how do you lessen the attachment? The same thing. Practice generosity instead of practicing possessiveness. Transform your mind so you take delight in giving instead of delight in procuring. Yeah? Think of the virtue that you create by sharing what you have and by being generous, and the non-virtue you create when you're only thinking of yourself and I want, I need, I have to have. Isn't this beautiful? It's all for me. Yeah? And, and in the society we live in, you have to be kind of strong-minded to separate yourself from possessions because the whole society is telling us we need more and better and more and better. Yeah. And we had a young man come out here recently who was an architect, and he was telling us about the tiny house movement, and people really looking at simplicity in accommodations. you know. And it was very interesting because he just sent me a piece he wrote about it, a draft of a piece. And he was saying, you know, for people who are low income, this thing of tiny house is really good because you can live in a small space and live quite comfortably and not spend a lot of money. But he was saying that the tiny house movement is also very popular among yuppies. I don't know if that term is still used anymore. Is it still used? Kind of the upward, mobile, young people who, you know, have everything in their hand. And it's kind of fashionable to have a tiny house with, you know, kind of furniture that turns into something else and this and that. You're nodding, yeah. You're from New York. You know it, yeah. Yeah, this is the latest thing in New York. Yeah, and so those people are actually getting a sense of attachment out of, you know, and social status from, you know, advocating for tiny houses. Yeah. So the point is, our mind can get attached to almost anything. Given the right circumstance, we can get attached to anything. Yeah? So you really have to think of the disadvantages quite regularly. Mm-hmm.
And for those of us, because the second part of the question was the attachment, the mental process. So here we are, you know, renunciates, giving up all of the worldly external things, but there's a lot of things going on in the mind that we're hugely attached to.
Yeah. Okay, so she's commenting about us renunciates, you know, who have given up so many things, but then in the mind it's like, did you see that nice sweater Venerable Semke's wearing now? It's nice, isn't it? You noticed it. I noticed it. You know? It's woven quite well. Very nice color maroon. Yeah, did somebody give it to you as a present?
About 6 years ago.
But it looks brand new. It doesn't look 6 years old. It's really nice. And it, you know, kind of comes up and keeps your neck warm. Yeah, it doesn't look like my old scruffy thing that, thank goodness, Venerable Yeshe put back in shape by changing the things around here. And
That you had to wear to New York.
yeah, that I had to wear in New York, where everybody else wears black. And I was in New York wearing maroon. And so were you, and you, and you. Yeah, what?
Everyone wears very new clothes.
Yeah. Very new clothes, and they're all black. You're not in New York. You can put on another color here. Yeah.
We've got some clothes for you, Tricia.
Yeah. Guess what color they are?
You have to choose maroon or blue.
Yeah. Yeah, so we can get, you know, kind of perked up about our own things. Oh, and it's an example of what, when I said, you know, we can get attached to almost anything. Some years ago, somebody, who I hope now is not listening to this, gave me a pair of shoes. You know the shoes. They look like wooden clogs of some sort, except they were gold colored and they had fur inside with a gold rim around them. You know, gold rim and fur and gold clogs. Okay? So perfect for a nun, right? So I used them to wear into the forest. So they got really beat up in the forest. You know, they went from gold to brown. And the fur, you know, kind of got kind of raggedy. And so finally I decided, okay, I'm going to throw them out. So I threw them out.
You never throw anything out.
And I never throw anything out. So to get me to throw something out, it's a big thing. So I threw these shoes out. The next day I noticed they're on the shoe rack. Somebody took them out of the garbage because they thought they were great. And this is 2 or 3 years later, and people are still wearing them. Yeah? So you can get attached to almost anything.
So when we have wrong conclusions during analytical meditation, is that deluded doubt?
So when we have wrong conclusions during an analytical meditation, is that deluded doubt? It could be deluded doubt, it could be, ignorance, could be wrong views. Yeah, it could be grasping onto permanence, or, like when you do a meditation on the disadvantages of self-centeredness and you come out hating yourself because you're so selfish, that's the wrong conclusion. Okay? So, that's kind of ignorance of some sort. Or you meditate on death and you come out thinking, yeah, everybody dies, but I'm going to outwit it. If I think of every possible way I could die, then I won't die. Because once I think of the dying that way, then it won't happen. That's not reasonable. Okay, one more question.
What daily practice can we do to reduce ignorance about the nature of the self?
What daily practice can we do to reduce ignorance about the nature of the self? Meditate on emptiness, And if that's difficult, to do right off the bat, think about dependent arising. Look at different things and see how they arise because of causes and conditions, and go really into the causes and conditions that make something arise, and then as your conclusion think, well, they're very dependent, so they can't exist under their own power. Or look at things and analyze how they're dependent on their parts or their characteristics and can't exist apart from their components, and then think, they're dependent on their components, therefore also they don't have their own inherent nature. Okay? And then think about how things are merely labeled. How we give names to things, and then sometimes forget that we're the ones that gave the name to something. And, when you think about this enough, then you can really see, wow, our names and our concepts really reify things. Yeah, that can be quite helpful too. Okay, so I think with these 5, there's enough to think about. And then next week we'll do afflictive views. Okay? Okay.
So we'll start on page 14, the model offering after teachings, and then go to page 30. May the spiritual teachers who lead me on the sacred path, and all spiritual friends who practice it, have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual mentors be stable, and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of Losam's teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds always increase. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamiryatayami. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha.
that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. In the snowy mountain pure land, you're the source of good and happiness, powerful Tenzin Gyatso Chenrezig. May you stay until samsara ends. May the deeds of explaining and practicing the Dharma, done by groups supporting the teachings and their upholders, who spread the view of dependent arising and non-violent actions in the 10 directions, and especially at Sravasti Abbey in the West Floor.